This week, guys, we're kicking off the show because, right, with everyone's feeling good. There's a good news story today. I'm lucky enough today we're going to change the name of the show. It's going to be The Coaches and AK, because obviously the offensive coordinator, is this going to be the first time you're being introduced as the offensive coordinator for the Tennessee State University Tigers, Hue Jackson?
Oh, absolutely.
And Coach Cam, has worked with the Texans, Cameron Campbell. Happy to have you guys. Thank you so much for jumping in. I'm going to jump right in and say this. Everyone, I'm sure, was watching the verdict today on the Derek Chauvin trial. How does it make you feel?
How do I feel? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Justice was served. I'm very glad for all people that they can see that you cannot get away with injustice. And to me, this was a huge moment in our history because there's been so many of these situations that have gone unpunished. And to see people in the streets, to see people really having that anxiety of not knowing what could happen and really finally having the right thing happen tells you that there's a chance that maybe we can get some things right in the future.
Yeah, you know, what I would add to that is I feel like this is the first time. So I feel like, you know, the Floyd murder started our generation's civil rights era. Like this formally kicked off the beginning of our civil rights era, like our generation. So for me, the elation comes from understanding that this conversation is happening at every dinner table, every bar, every restaurant. Like everybody's talking about this, and there's two conversations happening. One that is some relief of justice being served, and then one of I still don't get it. What am I missing? Right. So that conversation I know for a fact is still happening tonight, and that, you know, everybody needs to be having, you know, again, conversations, thoughtful, you know, disagreements or whatever, but everybody's having that conversation tonight.
So let's start there, because that's the harder conversation. Because I've gotten, you know, I said this last week, I've had people who at the beginning of this last year said, what's wrong? I don't understand. Why are they protesting? You know, did what he did, was it that, you know, was it terrible? And then seeing the trial, seeing evidence, seeing exactly kind of, you know, the full picture, because they're hesitant to kind of say that person's guilty of doing something wrong, have both reached back out to me and said, oh, I see. Now I understand. That was wrong. But as of today, I've had some people, because, you know, I reach out and tell people, you know, send me your stuff. I'll never say who you are, but I want to ask these questions, right? Said, well, why are people dancing in the streets? I don't understand. This really ruined tons of lives, but really 2 people's lives have been lost, right? George Floyd's, obviously, his life is gone. Derek Chauvin's life is done. Not to mention all their families and stuff. I said, why are they celebrating? And I said, well, that's what you don't get, right? That's the part that you don't get. The celebration isn't for a man's death or for another man going to jail. It's about justice where there's been wrongdoings. I tried to explain as best I can, so I want to hear from you guys, right? There's been a bunch of injustices happening throughout the years, and people have not had to pay the consequences for those things. And that's where you see the jubilation. It's not for a person's death or a person going to jail. It's for the right thing being done. And hopefully the next officer that goes to do something has that, hey, I should do the right thing, right? Coach and I say this, and this is Coach's line, I steal this all the time. Certain things have been normal. It doesn't make them right. And it's time that now maybe people start thinking about what's right versus what's normal. So I'm going to put that to you guys. When someone says to you, well, why are they celebrating in the streets? What comes to your mind, Cam, or Coach, whoever wants to jump in first?
Yes, I'll jump in and make it quick. So for sure, it is oppressed people finally feeling like they're being heard, right? And so I feel like it gets easy to like live in a microwave. It's the same celebration that South Africa faced in the early 90s. It's the same, you know, celebration that women, you know, celebrated after suffrage, right? So it's being oppressed and then finally being heard causes you to use that voice, right? And it's also the first time, you know, in a long time, or at least in my generation, where it is, tears of joy after tears of pain. And so for me, that's kind of what I hear.
Well, I think Cam just nailed it. And I think it's the statement you made, Anthony. I think people are so used to what has been normal. Normal has been these people have made it through. They've gotten away with this, even when it's been, seen at its toughest times. And now finally, justice was served. And I think, like he said earlier, I think Cam said it earlier, people still, how did this happen? Why did this happen like this? Why didn't this happen 20 years ago, or 15 years ago? Why aren't we really talking about Breonna Taylor's murder and all the other injustices that have gone on? So I think there are some real conversations being had tonight, and they'll be had through the rest of this week. But at the same time, there's a victory here. But I think we need to make sure that we see, understand, and build upon it.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before, and hopefully it's not just a conversation tonight and a conversation this week, right? Hopefully that conversation, and we're going to do our part to try and keep that conversation happening every week. Because listen, it's not going to change because of one, sentencing, because of one guilty verdict. It's a good step, but we know there's a lot more work to do. Because hey, just as the trial was happening, we had another incident happen not 10 miles away. And even this trial, right at the end, I believe one of the prosecutors said, this didn't happen because of, I really like this line. I understand the judge says it was inappropriate, but he's like, it didn't happen because of Floyd's enlarged heart. It happened because of Chauvin's small heart. And then you saw the objection and the, asking for a mistrial. And then when the verdict came back so quick, right, you had half of the people going, oh, that's a good thing. And the other half going, oh my God, he just got off. And there's, even with all that evidence, when it was clear to, like I said, almost everyone, there was still maybe, they were boarding up their stores, right? They're like, what if? There was still that uncertainty when I think anyone who watched it was kind of like saying, okay, he's guilty. Did you feel that there was now I know, Coach, you said, no, he's guilty, he's done. Cam, did you have any part of you go, oh, maybe he's going to get off?
I'd say, if I'm honest, there was a fear of that, right? So the fear is like that one, juror who could make sense of it, who could condone it, who didn't want to be the landmark, right? Because again, these jurors are going to go down in history as well. So that was my fear of someone not having the courage to do the right thing. But for me, it was, I have to be optimistic, if not on behalf of George Floyd, right? Like it would be counterintuitive. This would have been in vain if I weren't expecting change to happen.
I'm going to say something to you guys, and it's controversial, but it was sent to me about 45 minutes before we jumped on this call. And I'm only going to ask it because I didn't know how to answer it. So the comment that was sent to me was, hey, this is one of many that need to be convicted, which I agree with. And then they went on to say, I'm paraphrasing, obviously a very long email. And it said, well, what if they started convicting? Look, it's not just, young Black men that are being killed by police. There are, you look at the cases, there's white people, there's Asians, there's Hispanics. Why not make this a bigger movement now and say, hey, let's start making sure we prosecute all of, like, I get it. Don't get me wrong. I'm just telling you this is what was said. Let's start prosecuting all of these officers who've done the wrong thing, because we can't have bad apples in this profession, right? We talked about this last week as well. This is one of those professions where you got to weed out. Look, there's good and bad in everyone, but you got to weed out the bad. How, I didn't know how to respond to that. Maybe there was no response, but do you think this, take care of these first? Because obviously there's some, we need to deal with some issues here, but is it a bigger, hey, let's make sure all the wrongdoing is taken care of as well? Because maybe that sends a bigger message.
I think it's hard to go back. You should, you feel like you want to, but I think it's hard to go back. I think the ones that are the open cases right now that we've been seeing and dealing with, I think those are the ones that need to be dealt with, because I think it's going to send the right message if they're handled the right way. I go back to the last question you just asked, Cam. I know for me, I knew, as I told you, Anthony, he would definitely be convicted. But my reasoning was way different than because he did injustice. I just thought if he didn't, what was going to happen in our country was going to be an issue. There was a bigger side to this too. We could be burning down tonight if it went the other way, and I think that
the entire country.
Yeah,
that's the entire country.
I hate to say it, it's probably guaranteed, right?
Yeah, and so my point is there was also another side of that, and that's what I was feeling last week when we talked about it. There's no question that what the officer did was totally wrong, but just what we're saying, I'm so used to those guys getting off. But the other side of it for me was there's no way, because there would be some people there would be violence going on right now. I mean, they wouldn't be able to stop it. And so that was the other side of it. And when the president comes out before even the conviction and says what he says, and others come out and say that, it kind of lets you know where it was heading, in my opinion. So just interesting that way. But no, I don't think you want to go back. I don't think you
no, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not suggesting. No, I'm not saying go back. I mean, moving forward, I'm like, we should make a case for everything. Like, let's not let anything hide in the shadows. We need to bring all of these out. You know what I mean, and make it. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Cam.
So here's my thought on that. I am absolutely for that. So it's almost like my grandma used to have these. I remember wood panels that go on the walls. you put the wood glue every 18 inches.
Up there.
So
you better make sure it's straight too.
You better not move. Hold it still. So I feel like the same way that in the Houston humidity, like the panel would fall from the top down, right? So it's like if George Floyd is justice and you pull some of it down, and if we're going to be equally demanding of justice across all, that's only half of the wood panel. So now let's pull the rest of it back. Let's talk about gender wealth inequality. Let's talk about prisoner pipeline. Let's even it all out, right? And so it'd be mature of me to say, let's even those numbers out and bring back Black people up to where those numbers are supposed to be, especially when you talk about the wealth gap. But if I'm petty, let's bring some of these other races down so you can see what the struggle looks like. So when you see a Black kid respond a certain way or decline to get a job at McDonald's so he can sell drugs because that's all he knows and that's easier. And you talk about what kids are pre-exposed to, right? So it's like if I say the right thing, it's like, yes, let's bring that. I think it's for every family that has every Black family in Houston on average has $100 net worth versus whites have a $16,000 net worth in Texas. I'm sorry, like that's an actual stat. So it's like the right thing to say is let's start with that 16,000. But truth be told, maybe you need to come down to that 100 so you can see what these poor choices come from. The poor choices come from just an oppression and the lack of ability to see down the line enough to make a wise decision. Every decision is shotgun, right? And so that's what I'd say. If we're going to pull the wood panel down, let's pull that thing all the way
down. Perfectly said. I like I said, when I got it, I didn't, I get stuff sometimes, and I think most times I'm pretty good at responding back. Other times I'm just like, I don't know. And I'm okay to say I don't know. And that's why I love coming on here and asking you guys. So the next thing is, so obviously this happened because of many reasons, but one of the things that I wanted to ask you both, Coach, now you're going back to school. Cam, I know that you work with a lot of young people. What conversations are you having? Like, or do you go out of your way to have a conversation and say, hey, listen, you know what the world looks like today. We're trying to change it, but this is what it looks like today. When you get pulled over, if you get arrested, heck, if you've done something wrong, like what advice, how do you feel, right? Driving down the street in Houston, Cam, right? How, and soon to be, you driving down the street in Nashville, Coach? Like, and then what do you tell those young men that you're working with?
I think those are real conversations now, and they have been. I have not been in college football in a long time, but I know who my audience is. I think that's the most important piece of this. And we're trying to raise young men, to become men. In the National Football League, they're supposed to be men. You're still raising them there too. So there's no question I'm going to spend more time on that side of it, of the real life choices and decisions and consequences that happen. I think every day that's going to be part of my integration into, whether I'm talking about offense, quarterback play, whatever, because I think men got to understand you can make one bad decision in your whole career, your whole life could be done. And I think it's important for people who have been there and been through it to get back. And it's going to be my way of giving back on top of the football piece of it.
Yeah, for me, and especially, the space you're about to go into, Coach, and you look at, again, just from the age and maturation rate of where you were to kind of where they typically leave, where I see them leave out of high school. What I would say is similar to a light turning red in traffic and you not stopping immediately. You don't necessarily stop when you see the red light, right? You typically got a little time to get up to the traffic. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. So don't go active buck wild. So this is a win for us. So tomorrow, don't be in the police officer's face screaming F the police. Like, we're not there. It's going to take, so you should never get there, one, but it's going to be a minute before we can feel like that actual calibration from the red light. So don't take this and go the other way.
Yeah, listen, we still, look, I understand. I've never, like, the worst I've had is border police, cuffing me and thinking I was an illegal from Mexico trying to come into the US. I don't understand what it's like to drive down the street and worry. But at the same time, look, the police have to give the citizens respect, and we should respect them for what they're doing, right? But it needs to be mutual. It can't be one way in either direction. So Coach, I said this last week, right? This when you told me that you took the job, I said that's the thing that excited me the most, because I know what kind of man you are, and I know you're gonna be a good influence on those young men. So I think that's important. In that school, do you know? I was, again, I love people who send me stuff because I love learning. I'm a sponge. Do you know who the most famous, at least in my opinion, the most famous alumni is at Tennessee State?
I do not.
Cam, pop quiz. Do you know who the most famous Tennessee State University alum is?
I know a guy who played there. That's the most famous I got. I don't think he was that important.
Well, let me tell you this. At one time in her life, she owned Chicago. Oprah Winfrey.
No way.
That's what was
serious.
I looked,
Tennessee State.
It was sent to me. I looked it up. It said she graduated at some point, somewhere, somehow from Tennessee State. And I did not, you know me, I didn't believe it. I looked it up. I was like, wow.
You know what that means. So we got to set that coffee day so we can get that.
We need to have, I'm expecting an alumni guest and a car for you, Everybody gets a car. It was.
It's time to add on to that football win, Coach.
Right.
Yeah.
Roll the players out on the table.
I had posted our exclusive, hey, I'm announcing that I'm taking the job at OC at Tennessee State. And first comment on the YouTube video was, who the most famous alumni is? And I said, nope. And they said, Oprah Winfrey, look it up. So I was quite amazed by that, to be honest. And so speaking of Tennessee State now, obviously we wanted to talk about the importance of HBCUs in America. So I know, Cam, that's something that was important to you. So I'm going to let you kind of kick it off and let me know kind of what your thoughts are. And then, Coach, as you're moving into that, kind of, what your thoughts are as well.
Yeah. So, Coach, I had this interesting conversation. I'm kind of like one of those, kind of thought, I sit in the thought for a minute and share it around. Mm-hmm. And so I understand messaging. I understand marketing. I understand. I played at the University of Houston. I understand what hiring a strong chancellor and a 20-year marketing effort can do. It can change the prestige and the perception of a university. So I'm having this conversation with my guys. I think I ended up sharing it with Anthony. And the question was, are we as a people ready to establish our version of an Ivy League for HBCUs? Right. So when you think of the kind of the pantheon, there's Morehouse, Spelman, Clark, and that kind of tier. Then there's Xavier's there. Then there's kind of your, solid average. Then there's some that need more support. And it's like, well, yeah, all the not only is the history of the Ivy League very impressive to us, the history of the Ivy League ultimately is strong academics, but a consistent SEC-like athletic, consistent marketing within this group. And it's like, man, how amazing would it be? I have a daughter. She was born on Juneteenth, actually, last year. And it's like, how amazing would it be for the same way that I manifest her being able to go to Stanford, right? Mm-hmm. For it to be, Tennessee State, for it to be Xavier, for it to be Southern, right? But as far as just that prestige, and I know for me, I'm a doer. You know what I mean? And so if I say no to a lot of stuff, but the stuff I say yes to, I'm all in. And I think Bowl last year, what I'm saying, turning all those major schools down. So it's like, this is the moment. And so when you see guys make the investment, you talked about the interview, you didn't have to jump back in the game. You know what I mean? Like, the game's been good to you. And so it's like, yes, these are those inches in the cog that begins to reestablish what an HBCU really means.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Again, for me, watching the effect of Deion Sanders at Jackson State, the atmosphere that it created for the school, for the city, gave me an idea of what it could be. And then I had started to see, because of what's happening in the Power 5 schools, with the students wanting to be paid. You look in the portal, there's 1,400 freaking players in this portal because they want to play, and they really need to play if they want to be seen as football players. And I said to myself, with all these players having a chance to go where they want to go, if you're in an HBCU school, one, it's truly what I believe in. It's where some of the greatest players ever played a game have come from. It's just they don't have the resources. They don't have the name notoriety like they used to. Boy, what would happen if some of these coaches start to coach in there? Well, we just seen what's happening at Jackson State. Well, here comes Eddie George at Tennessee State. I'm going to be their assistant. Jeff Fisher's there. Brandon Fisher's there. It is starting to turn. So we can create just what was in the Power 5 system it back into the HBCUs and get the Oprah Winfrey's and the other great alumnus of Tennessee State and all these HBCU schools to come back and be involved. I'd like to know when the last time she's ever been to a Tennessee State University game. She probably hasn't, because she probably doesn't see it that way. She'd probably rather go to USC or Stanford or one of those particular games. We need to bring our people back and have them understand the history and tradition of what those schools were and what they still should be today.
And that's just it. So it's when you have that conversation with that kid, and it's like, Texas, okay, USC, right? Tennessee, no, yeah, this is a viable option. This is it. Mm-hmm. Like, keep this on the list, mm-hmm. right? And so I think about, like, my experience. I was born in a small town in North Louisiana, about 15 minutes from Grambling. I was grew up in Houston, very exposed to Grambling, Texas Southern, Prairie View. I got 0 letters from any HBCUs. So I wasn't the kid who was not aware of it. I was a kid who just never, wasn't in consideration. And so, let's get that 3-star, that 4-star, that 5-star, like a 3 or a 4-star this season. Changes the wavelength, changes the complete wavelength.
Absolutely.
And so it just takes that one. It takes that one kid.
Yes, and it's happening. It's happening at a higher rate. They say, I really didn't follow it last year, but I know they said Jackson State really did a great job of recruiting. I know we're going to go recruit now. And so why not go find the best? We don't need to say we're at Tennessee State. Well, that's where we are, but we're not going to run from that. We're going to go get the best players that fit what we want our program to look like. And I think that's because I think you have that opportunity now, because more so than ever, if you're looking at portal, players want to play. They need to be in a place where they can play and showcase their talent and ability while becoming the best young men they can become. And I think that's the biggest selling point that you have.
Well, I'm also, listen, this is from a football side of things. If I can go be coached by an NFL, professional, like a head coach, offense coordinator, we've talked about offensive coach of the year, if my game plan is to get to the NFL, who's going to make me more NFL ready than Eddie George, who is a all-time player in the NFL, Hue Jackson, who's an all-time coach in the NFL. Like those are the Deion Sanders. If you're going those are the guys that could show me how to not only become Deion is a good example of a guy that he came out and he was maybe one of the most talented players I've ever seen. But at the same time, he went through his ups and downs and his flashy, too much stuff, but then came back, he figured it out. Who else to better tell me how to, hey, this is the way, this is the right way to act and this is the wrong way to act than someone who's done both. So from that, you brought up recruiting. I don't know how much, I don't want to, obviously can't talk too much about it. Have you dived into, like we talked about last week and we weren't really, not a lot of information about what rules now with COVID and that. What do you know? Do you know anything new on what you're allowed to do, not allowed to do?
Right. I know right now I'm not allowed to do anything. It's a dead period.
Well, I mean, I will not get you in trouble, I promise.
Yeah, not break none of these violations. That's what I'm allowed to do. I'm allowed to sit
there. You have to pass the test before you can do anything. So all of that.
I think I have another year of eligibility. I'm just putting it out there.
But my phone has been blowing up. My emails have been blowing up of players who want to have the opportunity to play. So it tells me that we're going to have that effect. We just got to go make sure that we get the right ones for our program.
Cam, we wanted to talk about a mentoring kind of program. I don't know if that's something you want to bring up, and let's maybe hash out a couple of the details now. I know you had an idea.
Yeah, no, it's very well. And I think it's an idea, it's a conversation worth having. So, I've got friends in different, primarily football, but different pro sports spaces, clubs. There's a ton of obviously companies and organizations that work around pro sports that aren't necessarily clubs. And so, I built this solid network of peers and contemporaries. And, like anything, I think, and for all of us who have been in any kind of career, like you watch your peers elevate with you just along their professional journey. And, there's a handful of them that selfishly you care about them because they're your guys. And you just see the lack of opportunity and the stagnation in their career, not because of performance, but because of lack of opportunity, lack of relationships and networks. And so, I spoke to each of them and I said, hey, if I could somehow, I don't know what the framework is, we want to make it as non-burdensome as possible, but I love to find people who have been there, and also understand reaching that hand back. And so I reached out to a few folks in my network, and the first person we got to commit, and it's not a formal thing, right? So it's not about, some type of heavy burden, but just guys, catching up once a month on a Zoom and just sharing information, sharing games, sharing experiences, and picking up knowledge, right? So we got Alonzo Highsmith to contribute and sit, and then we also have one or two other folks here in Houston that are just really into planting that seed and providing and giving back. And Coach, I just I definitely appreciate your willingness to be a part of that. And what it looks like, what it takes form. Again, we're talking about high performance, busy people, right? So it's not about being burdensome, but just connecting it across the country, across verticals, across spaces, and just being a resource. And it's kind of just selfishly, it's my contribution to the guys I care about.
I think that's awesome. I think there needs to be that in this space to help people receive the opportunity and to get the knowledge. First get the knowledge and then receive the opportunity that they deserve. Right. That's the only way it's going to happen. There's so many of us that say, well, I know of so-and-so, but I don't know him, And I get, we're talking about the Zoom, but I rather have that relationship and know that I can put a name with a face. So when somebody does ask me, I can say, this is what I know, because when I say, well, I don't know, I immediately have eliminated that person. That person's really done, and so I think the mentorship program is needed. I know Alonzo Carter, as I mentioned to you before, Anthony K, he did something with the coaches. They had the West Coast, Zoom. They did it all summer. I mean, it went on for quite a while because there was no football. And they used to get 600 to 700 people on that Zoom at a time. It was amazing. And so much information, so many people spoke. So I think that's really important, especially for our minority voters.
We're going to move to the draft, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, Cam. We're just talking draft with the Texans, right? There's obviously we're not sure who's going to be. I'm not sure who's going to be the starting quarterback. Deshaun Watson still might get traded. We don't really know. Do you think they're looking quarterback in the draft just as a backup, like a plan B?
Yeah, I don't think so. So they addressed the backup quarterback earlier in the offseason, and Nick Caserio has done a very good job. I mean, just acquiring picks in a matter of extended weeks, right? So I don't see them necessarily going quarterback. I think they brought in Tyrod Taylor, and so definitely serviceable. I mean, he's a starting quarterback, right? So I mean, I think that's about as good as having the intuition to pick up Andy Dalton last year for the Cowboys. And so I don't know that you address it first. I think that there are some other opportunities to get better. And I wouldn't call quarterback a high priority.
Okay, so you think they're happy with if anything happens and Deshaun's not the starter, we're happy with Tyrod?
I think he's better than like 20. So remember we talked about So Coach, you can validate this for me, right? So I had this theory I brought to Anthony. He'd never heard it before. And when I brought the case studies, he was like, I kind of see, right? So my thing on quarterbacks is super simple. I know you're a quarterback guy. I don't trust goofy quarterbacks. Now, it's not that you got to be Rico Suave. It's not, so it's not even about pocket command.
Right.
But like when, like there's some guys who have made it to the Super Bowl in the past couple of years. And it's like, I don't know that I trust that guy with a spoon with an egg in it. You know what I mean? And so I just, I don't trust goofy quarterbacks. I think that's, if you look at some of the guys who probably shouldn't be starting, they kind of fit that, there is no, as a lineman, I got to look at you and know that, you're about to make a play. It gets very hard to trust a guy who it's like, yeah, this ain't going nowhere.
Goofy quarterbacks. You made the same face I made, Coach. I was like, what? Oh, okay. It makes sense.
There's some of them out there. You wouldn't hand them. They're not going to win for you. They won't. Matter of fact, they'll lose for you.
Can't face a goofy quarterback.
So I thought you would say that, but I'm double checking. Do you agree with that, Coach? You think they've got a bunch of other holes to fill that you think they're happy with that situation?
Okay, they do have a lot of holes. I mean, you've let one of the cornerstone players go on defense. You've let some others go. I think they're transitioning into a new staff. I think they know where they are. Obviously, this thing with Deshaun Watson is one of the keys to the future. So they have Tyrod Taylor, who is a proven NFL starter in the National Football League. Maybe because when you look, you probably can't go up and get one of those good quarterbacks because you have to kind of take what the draft gives you, right? Wherever they're picking at. So I think you got to go find the best player to fill the need for their football team. I agree with them. I mean, you're not probably going to get one of those top 4 guys. So if I'm not getting them, I need to play with Tyrod and take the next best player I can find and put on our football team to find that next cornerstone that's going to be on offense, whether it's a receiver or a lineman, on defense, whether it's a defensive lineman, a corner, whatever that is. So at least I got now that squared away. And then I got to think about what the draft might look like into the future for some other things that we need.
I know you worked over the summer with Mund, and I've heard him anywhere from the 3rd round, the 2nd round, late in the 1st round. I know you're hot. I know you like him. Do you think he can? Do you think because of the need, so many teams need quarterback? Do you think he slides in late 1st round, or you think he's kind of a 2nd round and someone's gonna be very happy to get him in the 2nd round?
I think it's possible, but I think it's going to be more the 2nd round, and somebody's going to be very, very happy they got him. I mean, he's very, very talented. He's very even keel, which I love. He's very cerebral. He's very talented, can make any throw. He's played a lot of big time football at Texas A&M, won some big games, played a big time conference. I don't know why people don't talk about him more, because his athleticism is like some of the other guys that are in the first round, you know. So it's just interesting to me. And he's a prime to me. He's a very cerebral guy, but he also has that alpha in him too. Now you got to pull it out. He's one of those guys. So it's like, even with all these guys, kind of who's coaching him, because you got to get it out of them. Some guys need, that cerebral coach. Some guys need that alpha coach. Some guys need the prime coach. He's the guy that needs a prime coach because he has all of that. And so you got to be able to bring the goodness out of him. And that's going to be the difference for him.
Based on what I saw, right, when you were working with him down at House of Athletes and then our conversation, I've dropped his name in other conversations, right? I go on other shows and people ask me and I go, and I mention the name and people kind of give me this, kind of weird look. And then they look him up and they come back and go, oh, he's pretty good. I said, yeah, he's pretty good. I don't think coach is going to lead me down the wrong path here. Cam, I don't know. I don't know if, whether it's Mund or anybody else, is there someone you're kind of watching in the draft that might, people would be happy to pick up?
Yeah. So it would be Mon. So I mean, I think it's kind of going back to the HBCU thing a moment ago. It becomes perception, right? So A&M is a second tier SEC program, and so you get, unless you go for like some crazy Florida run like they had a year or two ago, you kind of get that ancillary attention, and it's like, yeah, dude is. So you think about like Ja Morant, like you knew if you watch basketball, you knew Ja Morant was going to be that dude, and it's like, and I think the other thing they both have in common, I'd say Alvin Kamara, in my opinion, has this Ja Morant and Mon. You can tell they really enjoy playing the game. Like they just love to play. Like you can just feel it, right? It's like, yeah, that dude just enjoys playing the game. And so, yeah, he's one of those guys that, like a Dak, you're going to be very pleased when he gets probably, just whenever you get your hands on him, it's like, yeah, this is a steal.
I know coach's answer unless it's changed. So I'm going to start with you, Cam. So far, what you've seen in free agency, is there a team that sticks out as, yeah, this, hey, listen, it's all only on paper. I get it. We still got to play the games, but a team that, hey, this team has won free agency.
It's a tough question. I mean, I guess the Cardinals, I guess. I mean, this is no question. Cardinals are all in, right? And so I give them that for shooting a shot. But I don't know. I don't know that one team stands out to me.
I think now, Coach, has your opinion changed? Because Coach and I both agreed Cardinals. So it's we're 3 for 3.
Well, I have changed on the Cardinals.
Oh,
I think the team that's really taking it to another level is the Browns. You get Jadeveon Clowney, and if you get along with
I can't
Miles,
disagree with that.
And then you get the safety that just came from the Rams and the corner from the Rams. They have a chance now. If they can,
I can't disagree with that.
Paper there is talented as any team in National Football League.
Yeah, oddly enough, I was reading just this afternoon about there's a linebacker that kind of might fall to them, who I forget his name unfortunately, but who's a run stopping linebacker, and they're like, oh, if they get that, they're set, right? They're pretty much. And actually, oddly enough, this mock draft that I went through today had them picking this linebacker in the first round because they need a run stopping linebacker, and then Mund. Funny how this came all right back around, and Mund in the second round, they're like, as an insurance policy, right? Because if Baker has a bad year, hey, you got a very talented quarterback. Hey, if Baker has a great year, you have another talented quarterback, so you don't have to pay him all that much because you have a viable backup. So it was interesting how that all came together.
Now, speaking of the Browns, Coach, was Ricky Seals-Jones there when you were there? Did he play for you?
He was not. No, sir.
So he, local kid from Sealy, I actually coached against him in high school. I mean, he was 6'7", 215 as a freshman. You know what I mean? And you talk about Hercules DNA. So on his mom's side is Coach Ray Seals, who's a Houston kind of legendary coach, played at Prairie View. And then his dad's side is Eric Dickerson, and so this guy's just kind of got it figured out.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think he ended up with Cardinals. I'm not sure last year, but
it.
yeah, just one of those. Yeah,
But he's very athletic. I do know that.
yeah, for sure.
We're gonna end. Well, yeah, second last question on an NBA question. Okay, so I don't know how much you guys have been watching, and for once, it has nothing to do with our Lakers coach or your Rockets. Steph Curry. Yeah, we're gonna stay away from that conversation. Steph Curry has been lights out as of late, and I think a lot of people forgot how good he can be. Have you been paying attention? And if so, what is that next level that he has? Coach, that what do you see in Steph that's just it? Is it just that confidence that he can make a shot from anywhere and he knows it? What has changed?
I was in Oakland when it started. So Mark Jackson was a coach. I never forget Mark Jackson came out and said, "I am coaching two of the best shooters in the history of the game," and him and Klay Thompson. And you watch Seth, and Seth wasn't a big guy. He'd get knocked around, get injuries, had ankle and that type of thing. But one thing he could always do is score the ball. I don't care how you go about it. I mean, the guy can shoot it from half court. You go watch this guy and just in warm-ups, they shoot the ball from half court, shooting the ball from like he's walking to the locker room shooting the ball. It's just natural for him. And then you watch him win the MVP. You watch him lead the team to championships. Then here comes Kevin Durant, right? So I truly believe talent stacks itself. And I think Seth's a tremendous player. But Kevin Durant's a great player, okay? What you're seeing now is they need him on a different level, and he's answering the call. They need those 35, 49-point games that he's been scoring, but he's capable of doing it. He's always been capable of doing that. This is not new. I don't think we're saying anything that he couldn't do or people are surprised that he's doing it. He's just doing it so consistently, and people forget all these 35 and 40-point games he had when they were winning championships. Now, he might maybe never strung them together like this because he had Klay Thompson or he had Kevin Durant, but he could have did that at that particular point in time too. He is that good of a pure shooter. He truly is.
I think that's something that people maybe take for granted is that when he had Klay, when he had KD, he's confident enough to defer, and then when he needs to, he can do what he's doing. Right, Cam? Have you been watching? Who's not been watching what he's doing of late? Right?
Yeah, no, you can't not watch it.
Yeah.
So for me, I think Coach killed it, and the only thing I would say is, I think we compare so much, and we know that comparison is a thief of joy, right? So it's like at this point we're comparing Steph against Steph, right? And so he's excellent, so we almost don't appreciate special, and so on top of being excellent, he's just showing it's special right now. But when he's non-special off peak, he's phenomenal. And so it's almost like he is, he's underrated, as crazy as that may sound.
Mm-hmm. And I think Cam just made a great point, though. It was just like Patrick Mahomes this year. Everybody was like, well, come on now. What's wrong with Patrick? Nothing wrong with Patrick. He had a great year. Well, it's like Steph Curry. I mean, are you kidding me? When I look at things, I think of James Harden. What he's doing at the Brooklyn Nets, because it's different. I mean, he is dishing out assists at a high level when he plays and rebounding the ball and still scoring 25. Yeah. Okay, normally he scores 39. He didn't have many rebounds, like he never played defense. There was no assists, that was the game. He's showing something, and I think those guys get seen more than the Steph Curry or the Patrick Mahomes because we're so used to that's what they do. But that's special what they're doing. Everybody can't do what they do at that level all the time. So it is really interesting that people don't really see it. And then when you start to track it like they've been doing now with Seth, you go, oh my gosh, look at what this guy is doing. It's crazy.
Yeah. There's obviously some injuries to some of the top tiers. So I know this is a bit of a trick question. So for the people that are playing and healthy, right? So obviously LeBron's out of this question. Right now, is Steph either the best player in basketball or is he playing the best basketball? I like that question, Cam.
That's a good one. So I'd say playing the best basketball. I think that well, KD just went back down. He may be the best player right now. I think the coach's point about appreciating greatness, but also the three-dimensionalism, I guess, right? So you think about Giannis, like the playoffs last year exposed he still has work to do in his game. So as far as like I like John Morant, and then the other guy just went down for the Nuggets, Murray. So maybe he is the best player in the game right now.
Well, that's why I asked, because there's those injuries, and it kind of elevates him a little bit, because really this has been a terrible year, right? When it comes to injuries, if you look at all that, again, as Laker fans, missing LeBron, missing AD, Harden has, for the first time I think in his career, has missed some games. KD has been in and out. Kyrie, I know it's been some personal stuff, but he's been in and out. Like you mentioned, Jamal Murray's hurt. It seems like even Curry was a stretch there where he was in and out. Do you think and this is the last thing I'm going to ask, do you think the shortened off season, do you think that has played a role in this string of injuries? I know that a lot of players complained about it.
No doubt. Just like it did in football. No offseason. You go look at the start of the National Football League year, there was a ton of injuries early. Yes, it has. And so I think routine, these players are used to routine. I don't care how we know what that routine is, and that routine got interrupted. And so things changed. And I'm just concerned if you look at the data, and again, I know we're talking about basketball, but even for football, the data said last year, no really off-season program led to a bunch of injuries. And now we're talking about not having an off-season program again. The players are trying to do away with it. They don't want it anymore because they like to train with their trainers, do their thing, and then show up for training camp, go play. For the body and playing football, because you cannot simulate football in the gym. You just can't. I mean, or the workout room, you can't do it. So it's just different. And I think there's going to be a lot of injuries again this year.
Yeah, it's hard enough. It's hard enough to replicate game speed in basketball. It must be almost impossible. Two guys who've played football, right? It must be impossible to replicate game speed and game hits, right? Because that's the thing. It's one thing to get hit in practice. You're right. I've been hit in practice, and then I've been hit in a game. It's different.
No.
Do you feel the same way? Do you feel the same way, Coach? Is that off season that we kind of missed out on is affecting?
Yes, it just goes like to peak performance, right? So it's like it's everything Coach is saying, like the body, So for me, you think about like the pedestrian injury that like changed Amari Stoudemire's career, or Brandon Roy. Brandon Roy was so talented, right? So it wasn't an explosive play; it was just one of those repetition, right? So you think about the sustainability of a peak performance. At some point, you've got to gear down. You're dealing with, a Ferrari, right? So you can't stay in fifth or sixth the whole time. So yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah, no, good. Yeah, good point. Because you remember even the best, what you think is indestructible, Adrian Peterson, right?
Yes.
Look, he still played. I think he might even still be playing. He might be playing for another 20 years. But that injury completely changed who he was, and that's why it's so important to kind of pay attention to that. On that, I always, Cam, I don't know if I like to give everybody one last word. So, any kind of final shots before we let you go?
We're celebrating the George Floyd moment with no buts. No buts. We're just enjoying and celebrating this moment.
Thank you, Coach.
I think what Cam said, and I want to double down on that. This is a win. This is a win. It's a historic win.
All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for your time. I hope we can get together again soon and have some more good conversations. Cam, thank you for joining us this week. Coach, again, congratulations on the new gig, and we'll talk next week.
Absolutely.